Welcome to another edition of the Metal Voice. Jim and I are here today with our special guest, Mr. Martin Popoff, to talk about his new book, which is entitled, Jimmy?
Kickstart My Heart.
A
Motley Crue Day by Day. Here's the book. It's very heavy, Alan. Feel that.
No, this is
feel
a
that weight,
book.
Alan.
I mean, not only is it heavy, Jimmy, but I mean the pictures inside, the details. Martin, this is quite the elaborate tomb you put together here.
Got my copy right here as well. Basically, it's a similar format to the Iron Maiden and the Ozzy books that I did for Backbeat. It's a timeline with quotes situation with lots and lots of pictures and full color throughout. Basically going through all their career on the music side of it, on the not so music side of it. Lots and lots of quotes from the archive. Basically supporting all the turmoil and events through Motley's life and all the albums. So yeah, it's basically a nice coffee table book. Basically exactly the same format as the Ozzy Osbourne Day by Day and the Iron Maiden Day by Day.
What's one of the challenges of doing a day-by-day book compared to, more of a narrative, a historical view like you've done in the past with either the Judas Priest books or the Rush books?
Yeah. I think one of the fun things about it is in terms of research is putting everything in order and seeing where things line up against other events throughout. Like you get to see, in nice graphic fashion where, perhaps Motley's imploded again, and here's Vince doing his solo stuff, and here's Nikki, here's Tommy, and so you see these events juxtaposed against each other, which is one of the cool things, I think.
As I'm looking at this book, and I know people can't see it, but this is like so thorough. This is for collectors of Motley Crue, right? Not only collectors, but of course, I've learned so much in this book. I mean, dates. And just so people who don't understand what a day by day is, it's basically the beginning, right? It's just sort of follows the band, their influences, and how things all sort of melted together to become this force called Motley Crue. I don't know if that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, and I guess to reiterate, as I was saying, I mean, I think the cool thing is it's really all four of these personalities and John Corabi,
yes.
and even a lot of the side bands in quite a lot of detail, like 6 a.m. So it's these four personalities and everything that's happening in their personal lives, in their solo career lives, in their Motley lives, all in a big long timeline and with supporting quotes as we go along. So. Yeah, that's the kind of cool thing about it. It allows you to be pretty complex with what you include in the story, rather than having to come up with segues all over the place and putting chunks of one story together. It allows us to just go through and have a lot of academia just dumped upon us, and then lots of sweet pictures, lots of memorabilia shots, live shots, backstage passes, ticket stubs, 45 sleeves, all that stuff as we go along as well. And all the tours mentioned, in a fair bit of detail. Not every single date, but talking about, when they go to Australia, when they go to Japan, over to Europe, back to America, what happened in Canada. So a lot of very interesting speakers throughout this whole thing. And of course, all the guys, I've interviewed all the guys, repeatedly as well over the years. So all that's in there as well.
What happened with Nikki Sixx? Okay, so Nikki Sixx, you announced that you were going to come out with this book. And then Nikki Sixx, he insulted you in the press. I mean, saying, Martin Popoff, what did he say exactly, Martin?
Well, I mean, it was a somewhat healthy debate. I mean, I still would agree to disagree on the whole thing, but I think he basically is of the opinion that people essentially shouldn't be able to write books on the band or books on bands. I mean, we all know this happens all the time. It's just part of putting knowledge out there in the world that's going to be there forever. So, I kind of wish that he would more take the attitude that, this helps the band, it helps people know about the band, it helps sell records, it gets people interested in the band. I know when I read a rock biography, I go straight to the catalog again. If I don't own it already,
exactly.
I'll
Same here.
And so I think it creates excitement and interest in the band. And I mean, it all there was a bit of a Facebook flame war there at the time, where you know, armies of people on both sides were sort of you know, debating healthily this idea of whether you should be able to write books on bands. But you know, it essentially all blew over. I don't know exactly what went down, but the publisher and them had a chat, and all is well.
So we've talked about the Nikki Sixx issue, or the debate. Now let's get into Motley Crue best to worst albums, according to?
Well, yeah, Jim,
according to
the metal voice of Martin Popoff.
Martin Popoff, for God's sakes.
Okay.
According to Mop and Martin Popoff.
Okay.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Martin, give us your best to worst Motley Crue albums. And there are not too many of them.
Okay, well, let's go worst to first. Let's go worst to first. Let's go for something that might be a little controversial, but a lot of people agree that this is where they were running out of steam big time and weren't very creative. I'll go with Girls, Girls, Girls as possibly the worst.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's got some great hits, like, you know, great songs like the hits, Wild Side and Girls, Girls, Girls. But I think, you know, they were definitely running on fumes at that point. The songwriting wasn't quite there. It's kind of a Kiss type album where it's just all very simple. I'm not crazy about the production either on it. So I'll go with that one for the bottom.
Well, Girls, Girls, Girls is the worst.
Yeah, possibly. And you know what?
Just for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. No, actually, I think it's one of the worst. I don't think it's the worst.
Yeah.
Next, what do we got after
you know,
that?
Almost for the same reason, because again, I want to chastise them for, you know, when they should be at their height, not making the best music. So I'm going to go with Theater of Pain.
Heroin.
You know, I love City Boy Blues on that record and a few others, but again, it's the exact same reason. It's just very, and the band admits it themselves. They just weren't really hitting on all cylinders for those two records. So next one up, I would probably say maybe New Tattoo, although I quite like it. I mean, I basically like the whole Motley catalog, other than those two albums that I purposely want to chastise. But I would say that one is also kind of simple. The production is just really safe and corporate sounding on it. It's a little bit of a cynical comeback to try to do what they did in the past, and it doesn't really do what they did in the past. Next, coming up from that, I'm going to go with Saints of Los Angeles.
Oh, really? I don't know. I thought it was probably one of their better ones.
Yeah, and you know, in a lot of ways it is. It's a very strange album that way. It's like the most capable, the most talented, the most well-written. They've really thought about it a lot. The production's good. It's heavy. It's complicated, but just something about, you know, being an old school fan coming up through all those eras with the band, it just feels like it's a little bit forced and a little bit planned. So we're in the middle now at this point. We're not saying these are bad records, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah.
Coming up from that, I would say Dr. Feelgood, which I'd have to put in the middle of the pack. Again, it reminds me of the band being in that hair metal phase, trying really hard, trying to second guess what they're doing, but they do a much better job at it. It's almost like the untalented version of Motley Crue trying really, really, really hard to make a good record. Those three in a row just kind of have something in common with it. So a bit of the taint is on Dr. Feelgood that was on the previous two albums. Coming up from that, I would say Generation Swine would be next. It's an album I quite like a lot, and a lot of fans don't like it very much, so I would suspect if we had a bunch of fans doing this poll, they would start way at the bottom with that one, because it was very electronic and weird, but I like the idea that they were trying all these different things on that, and you know, I think it's a real Nikki and a Tommy album, that one. And I just like the creativity of it. The next one I would say is even more from the grunge era, and that's the Motley Crue album with John Corabi. And I quite like that album. I mean, we're up to the top 3 or 4 at this point. I quite like that album. I liked their approach to the grunginess. I liked the very brave and weird production values on it. Tommy's drumming is just slamming on that. He doesn't have to play super tricky, but he's really, really tasteful on that, on tracks like Hooligan's Holiday. So that's a really cool album. I like John's vocals. I think the guys were just excited about this new direction and trying really hard to do a cool, dirty, grungy, heavy album. Coming up from that, I would say the debut. I always loved the debut.
Yeah, me
I always
too.
thought it was just this weird, strange production. It speeds up, it slows down. I love Tommy's drumming on it, the cowbell, just the guitars and bass sounds are crushing on it. It's just a very weird, almost like accidental, happenstance, charming record that I think just comes out of left field and establishes this trash rock vibe for them quite well. And for top Motley album, Shout at the Devil again, I think is most people's favorites and is probably mine. I just remember that album having a really scary vibe to it. It was a scary time. It was like it's almost like the Donald Trump of Motley albums. It's like anarchy is loosed upon the world. What's going on here? This is just a brutish, strange bulldozer of a record coming out. It's almost like the first one in that they don't really know what they're doing, but we're just going to do it anyways. I love the production on it. I think Tom Werman is really. To some extent, they really kind of put down Tom and what he did. He's the secret weapon on that album because I just love the production of it. I think it's just crushing. The videos were great on that album, and the hooks and songs like "Looks to Kill," "I Shout at the Devil" was a cool, heavy tune. It just had a real sort of critical, massive vibe to it. It was loud, it was dark, it was trashy. It didn't really fit in any categories too well. There wasn't really hair metal yet. They knew they were being stupider and simpler than new wave of British heavy metal bands, but they just didn't care. So I just think that album just has a really cool, dark vibe to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I would agree. I think, Shout at the Devil is the definitive Motley Crue album. That's where we judge all the other albums by. Alan?
Yep.
For me, the catalog starts and ends with Shout at the Devil. Honestly, I'm not in a pulling. We could talk about 6 a.m. for an hour. That's no problem. But when it comes to Motley Crue, but I mean, back in the day, reading Circus magazines and Hit Parade and all that, these guys were the bad boy of rock. Before Guns N' Roses, there was Motley Crue. Before Rocket Queen, they were supposedly balling some large chick in with 10 Seconds to Love in the studio. So these guys were there, and there was a trend-setting album. Not only like Martin said, it was before hair metal, but everybody in LA wanted to become Motley Crue. If it was a Rat or if it was Those to Follow. I mean, you can't. It's a very simplistic album, but you cannot underpin or understate the effect and it had on everybody at the time. So for me, it's an unbelievable album. I still like going back and listening to it. So
yeah. So there you have it. From worst to first with Martin Popoff, according to Martin Popoff. Also, Kickstart My Heart, a Motley Crue day by day. Pick it up. Go to Martin Popoff's website. It's martinpopoff.com. And I'm sure there's a link there, right, Martin, where people can buy the book?
It'll be there in a couple of days. This is one that I may not have copies for sale myself because these big hardcover books, it's better just for people to buy them on Amazon. I can't compete with Amazon when it comes to these hardcover ones. I'm really learning. I mean, all my self-published ones, they aren't available on Amazon, so I'm doing really well with the Riot book and the New Wave British Heavy Metal ones. They're easy to pack up. I signed them and all that, but this one, pretty much just get it at Amazon.
There you go. All right, there you have it. Thanks for being on the show once again, Martin.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.